Hello and welcome to Meet Our Makers. I am your host, Jeremy J. Facette. On this episode, we get to meet Christopher Blauvelt. Christopher is a renowned and acclaimed cinematographer. He has worked with the likes of Sofia Coppola, Gus Van Sant, and most recently, Audutmn de Wilde on her newest film, Emma. Christopher came up in the business under the tutelage and mentorship of other acclaimed cinematographers, such as Harris Savides, who he shared a great kinship with and worked with up until Harris's unfortunate passing. He is most known for his work with director Kelly Reichardt, the minimalist American filmmaker. In this chat, we discuss various projects from throughout Christopher's career, as well as what it was like for him coming up in this business, moving slowly from second assistant all the way up to director of photography. So please enjoy, and thank you for listening. This is me meeting Christopher Blauvelt.
Oh, hey.
Hey, you can hear me.
Yeah, there you are.
Cool.
Is it only audio?
It is.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, no cameras needed.
All right, that leaves a little bit less pressure.
That's my thought exactly. So how are you?
I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just trying to stay busy.
Yeah, same here.
As busy as I can anyway.
Yeah.
What are you
You've been doing a good job of it, right? With your podcast and everything.
Well, that's kind of why I started it. I mean, I was sort of sitting on the idea for a while, but then this all started, so I figured why not just do it now.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, perfect motivation.
Yeah, and I figure that, most people are home, so
Yeah.
so it seems like a decent time to ask for 45 minutes of your time.
Yeah, people don't have as good of excuses as they might have before.
No, although they definitely still come up with some.
I'm sure. Oh, the reason that I was pushing us at least back further in the day is because I've been surfing in the morning.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Was not expecting that.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, it's California.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Where are you from?
I'm in Connecticut.
Okay.
So total opposite side, very cold water.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's been pretty cold here too.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone is surfing right now. Not here.
No.
What else have you been doing to stay busy these days?
You know, I've been doing a lot of exercise, which has been really great. My wife's got us on this kind of regiment that we do once a day. She actually runs as well, which I don't do, but we do this like it's almost an hour. It's like a core exercise. So it's something I always think about doing, and I would do occasionally. But now that we've been together and I've been able to focus or at least plan it out, we end up doing it a lot more, which is good. And then, like prepping a lot of projects and a lot of people that I know are filmmakers in one way or another. So there's a lot of the heads are spinning in terms of like like prep for jobs and developing things. So I've been working with a handful of friends developing scripts and just making plans for the future when this is all behind us.
Yeah, do you find that the work is sort of compounding now more than ever because it's like piling up because nothing's being made?
Yeah, I can definitely feel the eagerness and the fire underneath a lot of people that I am surrounded with, in terms of making their own projects. But I think now that it's been so long, I think people are getting ready to execute. So I think that the it's sort of the days off, the days that we'll be able to work and actually make the films are there. There's a light there at the end of the tunnel, and so it's getting more and more vigorous.
Yeah, I'm curious if I've been curious if this will end up sort of shifting how films look for a little while. or how they feel for a little, how they're made for a little while. Because I don't know if it's going to be exactly like it was before.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way that it wouldn't. And I,
Yeah.
I feel I actually it's one way that I feel pretty grateful for my experience in this world is that I've worked on a lot of, low budget and independent films, and I worked on a lot of, you know, friend jobs and small jobs, and um, you know, doing things by any means necessary. And I think that the big sort of studio giant, 300 people on a set days are gonna it's gonna be slow to get back to that. So I feel a little bit like I said, definitely grateful, but I feel like maybe even a tiny advantage in having that as a huge part of my background and my
Mm.
experiences.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when I look at your credits, you have worked on a lot of films that are sort of smaller in scale, and so maybe those kinds of films will be made similarly. But you're right. I mean, the big, huge, epic, humongous machine movies are I think those are going to be hard to get back into. I don't know when those are really going to start up again.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult, but there's a lot of smart people out there. I've seen a lot of memos and a lot of sort of preliminary sheets with ideas on how to do this and breakdowns. And there's a lot of things that are very ingenious coming up. So I think that, and going back to like independent work versus the big giant films with all the people, I think they're also the ones that have all the money. So
That's true.
they're going to be when the time comes, it'll come back in full swing. But there's definitely there's going to be new protocols in place to make sure that the humans are safe.
Yeah. Um, So yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you've worked on several of those films in the past, those kinds of smaller movies. But how did you ultimately even enter this world to begin with?
Oh, well, that's I think an interesting story because I live in Hollywood. I grew up in Los Angeles, and my grandfather was a grip, and my grandmother was a costumer, and my dad, my uncle, my brother, and my cousins are all camera department.
Oh
So
wow.
when I was a kid, my dad had we were just sort of in the film business, not and I remember it took me a while until I even realized that it was unique. I just sort of felt like isn't this what everyone's parents do? Because when I was a kid, we'd visit movie sets, and like I said, it took me a while until I really realized that it was a more unique um, existence. But yeah, so when I was a kid, my dad had done a job in Japan, and he brought me back a Pentax, 35 millimeter camera. And I used to shoot as a kid with these Polaroids that they would buy for me. They were like little toys. There's this one called the Polaroid Handle,
Hmm.
and it's 100% plastic and pretty much kid proof. But it was a big deal for me having this thing. And I remember really loving like composing shots, and I really loved getting changing the dynamic with human beings. Just by when I was a kid, I remember feeling the sort of, I don't want to say power, but like you could get people to pay attention to you and focus a little bit, and when you put a camera in front of them. So you
Hmm.
would feel the dynamic change in a room by saying like, "Hey grandma, can you stand next to my mom?" And I'd hold the camera, and they'd be like, "Oh, of course, sweetie." And so I remember really loving that, and loving putting people inside this little box that later would be a big part of what I do now, which is composition, and again, it's putting people in a box. I guess we never stop doing that.
Did you go to film school?
I did not.
Hmm.
I Yeah, I really despise school. I don't want to say I was a rebel, but I definitely I didn't. enjoy it at all. Just the authority and the whole sort of institutional environment of school. I felt very oppressed.
Hmm.
And so anyway, I know I didn't go to film school, and I got, I was doing like odd jobs, and I remember, I was really into skateboarding and punk rock and just being sort of a wild kid. And I remember it got to a point where my dad was like, if you're not going to go to college, you better learn something. And so I started going to movie sets with him, and I learned how to load film when I was, in high school actually. And so luckily, I had this nepotistic uh, growing up at that point that helped me get in there.
Yeah.
And I was able to adapt it to, what I do now. But I've been through like a lot, I say the kids, but a lot of the people that work for me and have worked for me that have gone to film school and just or not, but they've worked for me. They tend to move up the ranks like very quick. And when I was doing it, I mean, I was a film loader for about 5 years, and I was a second assistant for another 5-6 years. And so every step up, I spent an enormous amount of time. So that was my film school, was just going through, pragmatically just going through the system that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I studied film in school, as well as English, but I can totally see the advantage to your avenue as well. I mean, even beyond the, as you put it, the nepotistic sort of connection. I mean, even beyond that, I feel like that hands-on learning must have been probably infinitely more useful in the long run.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of ways to think about that. And I wouldn't say that it's the best way. I will say I'm someone who learns by experience. I'm definitely more of just like a tactile, I gain my knowledge through actual experience. And when there's something I don't know, I just sort of dive right in. How do I go to the people that are the techs or whoever it might be to really try and understand it. But
Hmm.
I want to say that, like, the kids that did go to film school, I was always jealous of them because they knew more about film theory, and they knew who every director was, and they knew how to articulate breaking down scenes in a way that I didn't. And so, yeah, when they would come to set, and it would be like a director's nephew or so. I remember it was for a minute there was this kid Stefan who was Jan de Pont's like nephew, and he was super knowledgeable, and I loved this guy, and yeah, I could run circles around him on a movie set, but it was one of those things where we would trade what we had for each other, and that I always find is a beautiful thing. I don't ever look down on anyone who doesn't um, you know, understand any type of film theory, and especially who doesn't understand how to function on a movie set, because everybody's got to start somewhere and learn somewhere. I'm more opposed to people who would act like they do, but actually don't. So
Right.
on my sets, I try to make it, and I do make it as inclusive as possible, because I know where I came from, and I've paid it forward, and I still pay it forward. I've gotten over 10 people in my union that are either acquaintances or friends that I've, just seen something in and been able to help. And so for me, that's something that's very rewarding. It's just a human being, you know, just like
Yeah.
helping friends. I remember my friend Sarah is a great example. She's a photographer, an amazing artist, and she I just like I seriously just missed her. And so when we were younger, I just kept saying to her, like, are you sure you're not interested in just, coming to set and seeing how this works for you? And it was literally my my thought there was to just try to spend more time with her, because I was always on a job myself. And of course, not of course, but thankfully it worked out, and bless her. And she's a camera operator, and she's loves it. And so it's
Yeah.
one of those things that's it's a crazy world, but there's a demand for a lot of folks on these sets, and it's great when it's a collective experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, from my experience, going through film school, I mean, I didn't go to like Tisch or anything, but going through film school, you
Mhm.
consistently get told things like, when you are starting out, there's a lot of those more technical jobs, lighting and sound people who are just sort of on the set and helping out. And that's kind of a really good way to get your leg in. But I
Mhm.
also found that, I mean, I loved my professors. I thought they were really smart, and I'm really proud of the work I made in film school. But I also found that I felt like we didn't really get a super grounded perspective of that, because no one I know moved out to LA. No one I know from that
Oh,
school
really?
is doing that. It's like, I
Yeah.
don't know if it was just sort of a lack of that connection, because we didn't really get those connections that you'd get at some really esteemed school.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like knowing people and just sort of doing it yourself can sometimes yield stronger results. I don't know.
Yeah, I that's my experience. So that's what I know, and I've known it to work, so I can speak to that.
Hmm.
But like I said, I see a lot of value as well into talking to someone. I mean, one of my main directors I work for, her name is Kelly Reichardt, and she's a
Oh yeah,
professor at Bard.
yeah.
And I mean, when I work with her or when I'm around her, I go to film school, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
and I couldn't imagine oh, it's funny. I mean, also some of her students have been my assistants and have been now they're cameramen as well.
Yeah.
So that's happening. And that I think is just a matter of, yeah, it's just I guess a matter of how the professors decide to share the knowledge with you or maybe their own knowledge, because I could see a film school being very important for you to learn like other than the practical, like the nuances of things and the
Hmm.
theory and the besides the mechanisms of it all.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely learned a lot there, and I learned about the basics of screenwriting, which is what I tend to spend most of my time with. And
Uh,
I did learn technical things, but also, yeah, the film theory, it does help, and I'm grateful for the knowledge I received there. I just sort of almost felt, Kelly Reichardt, if she was my professor, that'd be different. My professors, I think, there was almost like a jadedness there. I
uh,
think,
yeah,
which I think is probably not that uncommon
sure.
in film schools. And I just sort of, I mean, I
But
tried
do
to
you
work
think it's
work through it,
from?
but
Is it? Do you think because it's their people who themselves hadn't become successful enough to do what they wanted, or not to say that being a professor is something to look down upon. I mean, God,
no.
I'm just wondering what that might be. Why they would be jaded.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know if it was maybe like they didn't have the path that they thought they'd have,
Yeah.
or I don't know, the scene wasn't what they thought it would be. I don't know. I never really got to the bottom of it. I almost didn't even really want to.
Yeah.
I just kind of did my thing and tried to glean what I could from it.
Right. Well, yeah, this is
Um
the exact kind of thing. This is the exact reason I think I hated school so much. And I felt the condescension, and I think I was a slow learner or something. My mind was so much in the stars. I
hmm.
was a daydreamer. I still am. I think some of my best ideas come when I'm just in the euphoric state of halfway between sleep and consciousness. But I think that yeah, it's sad when I hear that kind of thing.
I mean, I did mostly love my experience. I just feel like I can totally see your side of the coin very
Right.
well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's those kids that get to come on the set, and if they really want to, or say kids, but just anyone comes onto a set and really wants to understand what any particular um, department or aspect or tool or trade within that environment, it's like just a matter of really focusing on it and spending the time and doing it. I think
Yeah, and I
again,
think being in Connecticut also didn't really help, because we're not
yeah,
usually like a major, we're not a major,
yeah, right,
what do you call it? Whatever, the center of it all.
yeah,
You do kind of have to go seek it out. It doesn't really find you here. So I think that was probably part of it too. But
yeah. I can see that. for
Um,
sure.
but yeah, so we will get back to Kelly Reichardt because I want to talk about
Oh,
her.
cool.
But first, I did want to mention, or at least ask a little bit about sort of your coming up in the industry, because when I do my little research for this, and I was looking up some stuff about your career, you are often cited alongside, or coming up under these sort of great DPs, like Lance Acord,
Mm,
who did a lot of Spike Jonze films and Sofia Coppola films, Christopher Doyle, who of course does a lot of Wong Kar-wai's films,
yeah,
Shyamalan and Neil Jordan, and then also most especially you are mentioned with Harry Savides, who of course did Bling Ring and Birth and Zodiac and all those great films.
yeah.
Um, so how did you end up getting sort of under their, I don't know how I'd exactly put it, but under their wing almost? How come do you think that you are sort of in that same
Um,
breath?
well, I'm glad you bring this up because I really still admire and feel very grateful to be mentioned along with these amazing, talented, incredible human beings. I would say the short answer is Harris. Harris was someone that I worked under as a film loader, I think, and a second assistant. It just so happened that one of the camera assistants I worked for, Julian Watley is his name, and he was a first AC for Harris Savides in the '90s, and we would go on runs as you do, and we worked for Fincher, and we did commercials, and we ended up doing the game,
Hmm.
and I think to go back a little bit, I think when I first started in the business, I was a film loader, like I said, into second and all that stuff. But I worked on these big giant action films. Um, for whatever reason, I was in the mix with these crews that were doing those, and it was Jan de Bont, and it was Andre Barkowiak was a DP a lot, uh, and I was sort of like the Z camera, quote unquote, the Z camera guy, or like I was very additional.
Hmm.
I was one of the crew, which was like a huge crew for those action movies. I did like the Lethal Weapons and Speed and Geronimo and Someone Louise and that kind of stuff. And and I remember very specifically, very vividly. I remember working with Harris and and realizing that, and or we both sort of realized that we had an appreciation for the same kind of films. I mean, we started talking right away about Drugstore Cowboy and Gus Van Sant, and um, he turned me on to Wong Kar-wai, and so he became right away this great knowledge, and it goes back to again, this is my film school, and so years go by, and I was his loader second. And then when I moved up to first assistant, I think Julian was shooting a lot more back then. And I remember, I'll never forget it. I was on vacation with a girlfriend of mine in Barbados. And this is before all the cell phones and I think even email. But somehow I got a message and it was from Harris calling me, wanting to know where I was like the following week. And I freaked out. And I remember telling the girlfriend I was with, like, this is a big deal. And he found out that I was a first assistant. And after this, so I come home, I just started working for Harris, and he kept me on his crew. I was with him, until he passed away. And I had gone through every step from that point up with him. He was always around me. And so I think he introduced me to Gus, and we went and did Jerry, and then we did Elephant, and then we did Last Days. And through this, I met Chris Doyle, and I got to work with when I got to do Paranoid Park with Gus Van Sant, Chris Doyle, and Lance Acord was in there as well when I was camera operating. And I think it all comes from Harris. I think about him every day, and I think that, and I'm so grateful. And I'm grateful, for the people that I've met, alongside of him. Great, Gus is still a big part of my life, and Lance Acord, and I don't see Chris Doyle too often, but I'm just I think about it quite often, and how lucky I am to work with people that I've admired even before knowing them, you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's not everyone gets to experience that kind of thing. So that's really fortunate.
Yeah, it's something else, I'll tell you.
And also, yeah, what a good film school, really.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
always think
and
about when you're mentioning that, I keep thinking about how Laura Dern always says that her film school was growing up with her parents, just like watching on set.
yeah,
And I
that
feel like that really must just be so enlightening.
it really is. And I mean, I'll tell you, when I first got to meet Gus, I freaked out. This was something. I mean, I lived in a house with a bunch of punk rockers in the valley, and I remember I would pretty much force them to watch Drugstore Cowboy all the time, just because I knew that they would love it. And I loved film, and I loved how it made me feel. And then, when I met Harris, I also had a big realization that I could actually work on films that I admired, that I appreciated. And
Hmm.
I loved the Dardennes. I love, like, Kurosawa. There's so many amazing films, but they weren't always the most uh, prominent in the mainstream, you know? And so to me, they were like just these secret gems that were only for me. And they spoke to me so much. And so once I was able to, or once I figured out, with Harris's help, of course, that we could work on these films that we actually really love to make. And
Yeah.
that became my life. And that's it. That's what I do now. I live for this.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
you am I right in remembering that you essentially finished out the Bling Ring when Harris passed away?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. How was that strange for you at all?
Yeah, that was, well, strange. I mean, you know what? When Harris was first diagnosed with brain cancer, he called me, and it was very emotional, and just it was upsetting and terrible, and the world sort of was crashing down. But he was never one to, ask for help or worry, or he till he died, he was just like hilarious. And
Mm.
anyway, he had been developing that film with Sofia, and he just wanted to. He asked me that night, the same night he was telling me he had brain cancer, but he asked me if I would just back him up and support him and support her, because he was going through that. And so that's how that came about, because I had already started shooting by then.
Yeah.
And so my role was just to sort of, yeah, like I said, support him and make sure that that went well. But then during the course of the film, it was very hard, because he was here and he had just had a tumor removed from his brain, and we were there taking care of him. And it was, we're not doctors,
Yeah.
and it was a really, really, it was a rough one. That was a rough time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad, I feel honored, of course, that he asked me, like always. And I feel grateful for Sophia, and I feel grateful to myself and the crew that you know had finished the film and took it to completion. So that was our task, and that's what we did.
Mhm.
And but man, that was a hard one.
Yeah. Well, the end product is pretty seamless, I would say.
Ah, thank you.
Um, so bridging now into, because you mentioned that you were already shooting, you were already a working DP by the time the Bling Ring was being shot. Um, and you had also mentioned, as we said, your collaboration with Kelly Reichardt. I I want to say that I in my research that I saw that Meek's Cutoff was your first film as a full-on cinematographer. Is that correct?
Well, not really. I did a low budget film in New Orleans that I don't think ever saw the light of day.
Oh,
And so it wasn't, not literally, but I
okay.
think the one that came out, the one that was the prominent um, feature of my work, and the movie that that people will list as my first one is Meeks, and I I don't mind that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a pretty good first job.
Yeah, yeah.
How did you hook up with Kelly to begin with?
I had worked with that's again that came from Gus's world, and I
Hmm.
had worked on what was it? Oh, it was Paranoid Park, and Neil Kopp is Kelly's producer, and still is Neil and Anish now, and for years. But before that, I worked on Paranoid Park as a first assistant with Chris Doyle, and Kelly had just started Meeks, and she was having a problem with her and the DP weren't getting along, and there was an issue, and so Neil threw my name in the hat, and it was just this craziest thing. I was reading the script on the way. I was reading the script on the airplane, and I met her at 4 a.m. on the way out to the desert, and I've never left her side.
Yeah. I know you've shot, just for the record, you've shot Meek's Cutoff, Night Moves, Certain Women, and now First Cow, which unfortunately I've not gotten to see
Oh,
yet
yeah,
because of COVID.
yeah.
I know I was so excited for so long, and then this happened. So I'm sure I'll get to see it eventually.
Yeah, they'll do
Um,
another rollout.
yeah. So what do you think it is about her work that matches with your sort of sensibility? Why do you two work so well together?
I think crazy question. Well, because I think that I consider her just such a friend, and I consider her, like I said before, a teacher. So I learn a lot from her. But I guess what I can say I appreciate about her style and what she brings to her films is just like there's a sincerity, there is a minimalism, there is a tonality that just distills a film down to an essence of something that I think is like very authentic, and it comes from, again, back to my film school, which is tons and tons of conversations with Gus and Harris, where I'm sitting there, with two geniuses, and I have a pen and a pad next to me because I'm always, taking notes, and that's what I did for Harris anyway. But these notes had, become invaluable over the years. But I think that there is a school of thought that is goes to showing something in the most authentic manner, and that is like the distillation of coverage and economy of coverage, and minimizing like camera setups, and that is something that Kelly really adheres to. So I think that, like, just as sort of a through line, that's something that I think that we see eye to eye on, and also did in the beginning. I
Hmm.
think that's a part of it. But then there's this other part where, you know, I will sit with Kelly before a film, and we'll shot list, painstakingly shot list, every single scene, and make sure that we're on the same page with how we want to approach any specific shot throughout an entire film. And then she wants to throw it away. And it's a really funny thing, but it's beautiful also, because it's just one of these things where you're sitting with another person, and you're really making sure that you both understand, in the depths of, all the nuances and everything that's involved with telling a story. And then when you get to set, it's like, you know what, you don't need it anymore, because you kind of can figure out through the blocking of how to do it. And yeah, sometimes you do things that are just like what you've written down. And I carry the shot list with me in my back pocket, but it's funny when I pull it out and she'll say, just put that away. Sometimes it's more for me in a logistical sense, where I can tell my crew, like, okay, remember we wanted to do a dolly track here and a jib arm there, so it's maybe more of a practical thing at times. But that's the way that we sort of meld our brains together before a project. And it is exciting to know that it's not it's not it's not scripture. It's like it's something that we can throw away. It's more about us getting our heads together to tell a story.
So it is a very collaborative thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty
Um,
of it. That's what I love about what I get to do is collaborating. But I mean, Kelly is someone that before I see her in prep, she's already there's these books that she makes of of still images and paintings and sculptures, and there's her research is intense, very in depth, and just immaculate. And so we start off from there. So it's a lot of times more in the beginning, more about me just understanding what she's after, and then when we really distill it into shots and break things down into our our camera language, that's where we get to really like talk through each thing.
yeah. Um, so I mean, were you a fan of her film before then, or had you not seen them, like Wendy and Lucy and Old Joy?
No, I saw Old Joy and I loved it.
Okay.
Yeah, these are the kind of films I really love.
Yeah, me too. I mean, Kelly Reichardt is she's pretty much my favorite filmmaker. So,
Oh, that's great.
um,
I love when people say that. I mean, because she's, of course, I'm biased, but she's also
yeah.
a friend of mine.
Well, that's part of the reason I was very excited and pleased that you agreed to come on.
Oh, yeah, and I appreciate that.
Because I love her work. I love how her work looks and sounds, and I feel like no one really quite does what she does.
Yeah, she's incredible. I think, yeah, I think she's the best living American director.
I would agree with that. So, even amongst the four films now, right, four that you've done with her, um, and then amongst your other films, it does seem like you have tackled many, many different genres. I mean, even with Kelly, while her films stay very minimal and intimate and small scale, she's done a western and a thriller and a moving triptych realist drama. She kind of dabbles in different styles as well. And
Yeah.
then you've done a lot of different genres, even just as a DP, but also clearly in your work as a second and first assistant.
Uh-huh.
Um, what draws you? Do you have a motivation to sort of dabble in these different styles, or is there one that you sort of find more difficult than the others, or?
No, I don't have a motivation for anything except a good script.
Yeah.
I think the script dictates and informs the visuals. I think that yeah, it starts with the script. So to me, it doesn't matter. I don't have a motivation to do any particular genre. And I actually, in a way, I admire and I enjoy when something hits me out of left field.
Mm.
And it's to me, it's a challenge. This is a good thing to call out. I think is that for first cow was 18 in the year like 1817 in the Pacific Northwest, like the frontier of America. And so it's not developed yet, and there's one fort for every 500 miles or something, and there's people are making their money by bear trapping bears, and everybody's dirty, and it's just this it's the beginning of this culture here. And
Hmm.
then the film I went to do immediately after that was with another dear friend of mine, Audutmn de Wilde, called Emma, which
Oh
was
yeah.
the same year. It was the same year. And but this is civilized England. So this is a costume film, and this is like a Jane
Hmm.
Austen story. And so, I mean, they are the same time period, the same era, but just completely different genres. And to me, that was a challenge, but it was exciting.
That's so interesting. I would have never put that together.
Yeah, it's really wild. I mean, they're the antithesis of each other. And like to me, and also not to mention the scale of budgets were.
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to mention. I mean,
Yeah.
Kelly's budgets, even now as she continues to kind of slowly get more and more notoriety, her budgets stay pretty small. And then you look at a film like Emma, and I can only imagine the budget blows that one out of the water.
Yeah, it was enormous. It was enormous.
Yeah.
And so that therefore, another challenging thing to deal with, but exciting.
Yeah.
It's the same way like in between films when I'm lucky enough to do a commercial here or there to make a living in between. I get excited because I have all these resources now, and it's fun it's like I'm testing things to put in the bank for future projects, for future films.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and so all of this is again going to that thing, getting knowledge through experience.
So you mentioned Emma by Autumn de Wilde, and then also recently you've done mid '90s from Jonah Hill.
Yeah,
And it seems like you've done quite a few actually debut films. Um,
yeah.
I know Emma was Autumn's first film,
Mhm.
Jonah's first film mid '90s, and then you also did things like Low Down and I Am Michael. Is that just by chance, or do you sort of enjoy developing those sort of like first breaths sort of projects?
No, I think it's the people involved, and again, it's
Hmm.
the script. If I really like the script, I'm gonna go for it, and if I get along with the director and producers involved with it, then I'm in. And so, I mean, that the movie Michael was a dear friend of mine, Justin Kelly, who I love, and I think he's an amazing, phenomenal filmmaker. And so that was a no brainer.
Right.
Um, I did, Jonah's film was uh, was something that was very close to my heart. Growing up skateboarding in Los Angeles, and their era was 10 years later than mine, but even still, it had the same energy and the same emotion, attached to it, and nostalgia. And I had met Jonah through Spike. Spike hooked me up with Jonah. We were at Musso and Frank's. It was my wife's birthday, and Jonah was a big part. He really helped. I'm sorry, Spike was a big help for Jonah. He really helped him develop that script, and they're good friends. And so Jonah was looking for a DP, and I happened to be there. I actually snuck up on him with my Polaroid camera to take a picture, and I was acting as if I was like someone like a paparazzi or something, and I saw Jonah's face because he didn't know me. He was like ready to push me away, like, "No, what do you do? Get out of here!" And Spike threw a napkin at me and said, "Blauvelt." And so we had a couple laughs. And that night, Spike told Jonah I should be the guy, and gratefully so, thankfully so. And so that movie got pushed a couple years. So over the course of those years, Jonah and I became better friends, and we would talk about the film, and using that time to prepare yourself is invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, then there was Lowdown I did with Jeff
Right.
Price, who I love dearly. And I mean that film was also a magical experience because of John Hawkes and Elle Fanning, who's still my friends, and I like
Such good actors.
yeah, aren't they just the best? And
I know.
yeah, and I mean, this is another crazy Hollywood story, which is the story is about Amy Daviston, Amy Jo, and she's a friend of ours. She's a script supervisor that me and all my assistant friends know and love. And so, well, while we're prepping to make this film, like the heart that went into it was real. We were really, I couldn't let her down, and she's someone that I still talk to and love dearly. And we're telling her story, her childhood story, which was just a
Yeah.
crazy thing. I mean, I remember days where we're scouting and we're looking for her mother's apartment, and Amy's there, and she brought like these little photographs and little knickknacks that were her mother's. And so, man, that was a heavy film to make.
Well, that's a little bit of Inception there.
Yeah.
Just like that weird, like transcending the
Uh-huh.
uncanny valley kind of thing.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So when it crosses, yeah, when things cross over, uh, I guess there's more weight to it, of course, but I mean, I think, we take me, my crew, we take it, to heart. We want to do good work, and everybody around me, bless them all. I don't accept much praise without bringing them up, because there's a lot of people, involved, that collaborate and that I rely on for advice and for, technical support in all of this, that, I couldn't do what I do without them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say, I'm just curious, was your most challenging film to shoot as a DP?
Um, Interesting one. Uh, I think I think Emma was really hard. That was hard, the last one that I did, because it was it was um it was a long, long time. I was in England, and it was cold and it was wet, and it was there was um a lot of struggle with figuring out our days, because of, like, there was just logistical things that just could never fit into the puzzle. And
Yeah.
that was just a constant sort of thing that would beat us down. So that one I feel was hard, but it was something that if it was a 6 week shoot, it would have been fine. But since it was a 6 month shoot, it was something that just, like, day after day, like, really beat us up. So that one was emotionally hard. But then
Yeah.
there's jobs that I think maybe every job we do with Kelly is physically hard, because we're always in the rain, in the mud, in the snow, and it's always sub-zero somewhere at night.
Yeah, I know. I was watching the bonus stuff on the old Joy Criterion,
Uh,
which I know you weren't the DP for, but just hearing everyone talk about
yeah.
basically just like lugging everything through the woods every day for hours.
Mm.
It's raining one day, it's really hot the next day. Like, yeah, that's kind of what I picture for her stuff.
Yeah, I can't talk too much about this because she'll call me a crybaby. But we all know that they're hard. But that's, like, if there's a beauty there as well. And I
Yeah,
think there's
definitely.
something to be said for, working in a smaller existence like that, and working hard and working in these conditions. I mean, our family, we are so tight. I mean, I talk to these people, or text with these people, or communicate with them, every other day practically. We are a tight family,
Yeah.
and everybody helps. And so this job, and in contrast to the bigger sort of studio structure, we do everything together. All the lines are blurred. The camera department, the grips, the electrics, the costume, everybody helps everyone else. And I really like that environment a lot. It's just, we do it all ourselves, and the producers are carrying camera cases, and it's just, we take the brunt of and all the pain together, and therefore it makes us just, the camaraderie is incredible. And I love these people, and I love making these films with these people.
Yeah, and I think that's really, really important. I can imagine that being vital, sort of that community, family type environment, especially carried from film to film to film, because that ends up sort of leading into this sort of consistency
Mhm.
and everyone working together. And I almost kind of think you can see that in the finished products.
Yeah, I feel the same. I think it transcends into what comes out on the screen. And
Yeah.
that's just me, and I think, but as a collective, it's just the best. And there's a shorthand there, because Kelly has picked over the years who she likes to be in what position. And she also considers, I think, she considers how they are together, so therefore our family, our sort of whole family dynamic, isn't as dysfunctional as things can be when you just sort of throw people together, and maybe there's, some oil and water here and there. you
Yeah.
know, where ours is like there's a shorthand, and when we get back together, it's just like the family's here, you know, the family's back.
That's so nice though. That must be, it just probably makes it so much more exciting to get back into it.
It does. It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. So before we go, I did want to talk about these books that you're making. Um,
Oh
you
yeah.
mentioned, yeah, you mentioned to me you have these two, there's two of them so far. There's a mid 90s book
Yeah.
and one for Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot, which is a Gus Van Sant film. Is that the only Gus Van Sant film you've been the DP for?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that must have been pretty rad.
Oh my God. Well, see, that's a perfect segue because when I was asked to do when Gus asked me to do the film, I was just I couldn't believe it. I think, you know, and I know that if Harris was still alive, it would be Harris. And if Harris asked me to work on it as, you know, toilet bowl scrubber, I would be there. And as well as Gus. And so I remember I was with my wife at her mother's house in Arizona, and I had taken a walk and out in the desert, and it was so beautiful, and I was having this just existential life, you know, feeling, and I couldn't stop thinking about Harris and how lucky I was to be asked to make a film for Gus, and I thought it took me back to how I used to work for Harris, and what I used to do for him was I was the person that cataloged everything. So I would take the Polaroids and I would glue them in the book, and we would write our exposures, and everything was very tactile. You know, we didn't have computers yet.
Hmm.
And so I thought it just came to me, and I have this dear friend of mine who's one of my camera assistants, Jake, who's an artist. And so I thought, what a great way to pay tribute and homage to Harris by compiling these and making a book out of it. Because on the game, we actually made, they used to be composition books that we had just, you know, glued Polaroids and written all of our notes on them and exposures. And the grips, Mike Koo, the key grip, he made these wooden boxes for Harris at the end, and they all fit in there, so he could have them on his bookshelf. So I always really enjoyed that process, and I really appreciated the document it created. So on that film, on the one I did now with Gus, Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot, we really dug into it, and we really diligently drew out and wrote down all of our exposures and took all our references. And so at the end of it, I was just going to make a book to give to the crew and give to Gus. And when I went and showed Gus a prototype, he freaked out and he loved it. And he said, we should get Amazon to publish this. And I kind of realized that I felt like I had something there that would maybe be nice to share with more than just our crew. And that's when these books, that was the inception of this idea. And so I call this series, there's two. It's called Concerning Cinematography with a big plus sign. And the plus exists there because while we were in post-production for this film, Paul McCarthy, the artist, was a friend and a person that my wife worked for as a producer. And Gus and Paul, it really started to hit it off during this process, and I did as well. And again, it reminded me of those conversations I would sit in with Gus and Harris. And I couldn't get over how amazing, how just sort of free and creative these guys' brains were, and how they were together. And so in this book, I made the whole, I asked Paul to do the foreword first, and then I got the idea just to record a conversation we had. And so I picked up Gus one day, and we went to Paul's studio, and we had Paul's son Damon there. My wife was there. My book producer was there, and Michael Pitt just happened to be at Gus's house. So he's in the conversation, which adds some hilarity to it. Anyway, that's how it all started. And then after that book, I'm just self-publishing them. And I made one for mid-90s, which I'm also really proud of. And I hope to do more, because it's just, I always like to say that, or I always want to say that I'm making these books not as an authority on cinematography. It's just showing the way that I do things and giving some insight to the way that we did them on that particular film, but also adding the artist's perspective is another way to just expand on the idea that film is art, and what does it mean to any specific person. And so, we got Darren Bader, the artist, to hang out with Jonah and us in New York for the mid-90s one. And it was just like, it just gets into some batshit crazy things come out. and I live for that. I love it, because I think all of this is just an expression, and I think, films, in my opinion, is the greatest form of expression. But it means a lot. It means a lot to a lot of people, and it means different things to different people. And I don't know. I guess I really just like that conversation.
Yeah. And it's also sort of, these books are sort of like a document of the whole experience of making the film in a sense. And
Mm,
also, cinematography, it's sort of the thing that you can't watch a movie without seeing, but sometimes people might kind of be looking through it. So it is sort of nice to have this document of, well, this is what we did on this film from a cinematography standpoint, from an
right.
artistic visual standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad you say it that way also, because I really feel that when I've done a good job, it's people don't need to talk about it. If I read a review for a film that I've done, and they don't mention me, but they give it a good review, like that to me is a success. That,
Yeah.
because it's not about me. I'm there to collaborate and facilitate, of course, and help. But I think it's like I like the idea of not making myself a distraction.
Yeah.
And like I said in the very beginning, the source is the script. So if we served the script and told that story in a way that's compelling and a way that serves its purpose, then that is a job, that is a success.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll leave it there then.
Right. Leave it on success.
Yeah, a success, please. Thank you so much for talking to me, Christopher. It means a lot to me that you agreed to come on. That I got to speak with
Of
the guy
course.
behind the camera of some of my favorite movies. So that was very exciting for me.
Yeah, well, I'm very grateful, and I'm loving what you're doing, Jeremy, so keep it going.
I appreciate that. And I'll keep it going as long as people keep saying yes.
Yeah.
That's what I need to keep going. Otherwise, it'll just be me talking to nobody.
Oh, it'll happen. You'll be fine.
I'm trying.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. Have a good one. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.